after a long time, and what a pleasure. I cannot imagine. I have got a great pleasure to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I add here something? Yes, Dr. Sharma. Yeah. So exactly what you have shown, we see same thing in human being every day. And what we have seen, that the moment, it is the time factor which is very important, because as you have shown in your experiment, that is hours by hours, day by day, things are changing in the myocardium and leading to dilatation and thinning of the myocardium. So based on time factor, it has been advised that early is the better. So the patient, when we develop acute MI, and within an hour if we reach to our cath lab, and once we open the artery, block the artery, what we have seen, reverse model. A lot of patients started improving, and the moment the blood flow goes, the reverse modeling is started, and the changes of myocardial, which if it is delayed, if it is not delayed, we have a very good and full recovery. If it is delayed more than 4 to 6 hours, there still remains some segment of the myocardium dilated and hypertrophic, or then end up into the akinesia and heart failure. So it is the time factor and how quick we can open it up. And do you also see this very ischemia and deperfusion injury? Yes. So what we have seen already, the moment the arteries are open, patient started showing a lot of arrhythmia. Most common arrhythmia we have seen is ventrotachycardia and ventrofibrillation. Even the patient goes in fear. So none of the patient goes into the cath lab without putting a pad to defibrillate him. Because this is not very uncommon to see fibrillation in cath lab. And the moment we see defibrillation, and they came back again. Thank you. That is brilliant, very nicely shown. I must congratulate you. Thank you. Thank you. So I think we move right up. I'll call upon an excellent, one of the next speaker, which is, on the other side of the continent, from US to Australia. Lindsay, are you there? Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Wonderful, wonderful. Great to see you. Can you take that one if I put my screen up? Yes. Okay. Yeah. If you could share your screen, yes. Okay, can you see that? Yeah, so if you could go into the presentation mode. Okay, so you make sure that you can see the screen, can't you? Yes. Okay. Sorry? We can see, but if you could go to the presentation mode. Yes. Yes, now. Okay, ready to go. Okay, thank you. Can I say a few words, please, about you? Only a few, Harry. Only a few. So, Lindsay Brown, I'm in Brisbane, and we know each other for more than 2 decades. Excellent work he has contributed in the area of food as a medicine that really is providing tremendous evidence with many papers in therapy and therapeutics, mainly bringing from the pharmacotherapy angle, but really dealing with the cardiac and other organ well-being, basically. So I'm very delighted to see you and also the audience, which is from different parts and saying all I have heard also in the lecture hall. So Lindsay, if the college wishes to copy this presentation, I'm happy for them to do so. Thanks, Harry, for that introduction, and thanks also to the college people, Dr. Singh, for sending me the information. I'm happy to talk here, and as you can see, my topic is the role of tropical functional foods in cardiovascular protection. Now, very simply, functional foods are foods that provide nutrition, but also can help to either prevent or reverse disease states. And so that's that combined effect that I'm interested, as a pharmacist by training, pharmacologist, looking at whether we can use these foods to try and prevent or reverse disease states. Now, some of our recent, two of our recent reviews there, one on tropical foods for metabolic syndrome in food and function, and the other one in current opinion pharmacology, as you can see down there, tropical foods from Australia. Now, that also reminds me that my accent is probably different from what most of you have heard before. If there are problems understanding, please ask questions at the end. Metabolic syndrome, certainly mentioned previously, that the combination there in the middle there, the combination of visceral obesity and hypertension, long-term hypertension, insulin resistance, so the inability of insulin to have an effect, high triglycerides and the low HDL cholesterol. Now, this has usually been seen and often been seen as a Western disease state. It's not, it's around the world. You can see the numbers there from a study from India in +1 a couple of years ago. 1 in 3 adults in India suffer from metabolic syndrome. Females living in urban areas and high prevalence, and they're saying that we need to develop policies and protocols. Well, let me suggest that using some of the functional foods that already occur in India may be one of the ways of going towards that. That would imply that we need to know more about the diet of Indians. And this is a study you can see down the bottom there from BBC Public Health, a comparison of the Indian diet with the Lancet reference diet. And if you look at the conclusions, the cover share is very different, but the conclusions down the bottom, Indian diets are unhealthy. Excess amounts of cereals, not enough protein, fruits and vegetables. And if you look, I don't know which state all of you are in, I think most of you are in the northwest there, and if you look at the figure, the maps of India, the dark areas are those with the higher calorie difference between consumption and reference. So in particular, that the northwest part of the state are the most deficient. The southern states, so Kerala, as you can see there, are actually, and Tamil Nadu are actually some of the best. Well, are there sufficient fruits in India? These are pictures from the internet. So on the left-hand side there, India is the world's second largest producer of fruits after China. And there's vast amounts of, you people go to the markets, there's vast amounts of vast variety. And they're the ones that are commercial. But on the other side, I put some pictures of Garcinia species, because I'll be talking about Garcinia, in the Western Ghats. So in the area of India, these are ones that are, most of these are not commercialized. So there's still an enormous range of possible fruits to be used. What we've done are rodent studies in rats, not mice as in the previous one. When we started these, the echo work wasn't as good as it is now. And so doing a larger heart as in a rat was feasible, the mouse heart simply wasn't. Good to see that that's now changed. But looking at, in these diagrams on the bottom left, so rats treated for up to 16 weeks with a high carbohydrate, high fat diet. So lots of fructose, lots of saturated fat. And then over a period of 16 weeks, and from 8 weeks onwards, the intervention. So this is a reversal protocol. This is not prevention, mainly because when patients go to the doctor and they're obese or hypertensive or whatever, they're asking for that to be reversed. They're not going to the doctor when they're perfectly healthy and saying, I think I'm going to become obese, or I think I'm going to become hypertensive. I should do something about it. Yes, it would be nice if they did, but that's not going to happen. So this is looking at a reversal protocol of a high carbohydrate, high fat induced cardiovascular changes. And the young man in the photo is Sunil Panchal. He's from Nagpur, did his PhD with me, worked with a postdoc, and is now a senior lecturer at Western Sydney University. And most of these studies actually come from his work. So looking at Garcinia mangostana, so the mangosteen goes around the tropical areas, Southeast Asia, also in Australia. And if we look at the figures there, so first of all, A, the weight. So the red ones are the high carbohydrate, high fat rats for the 16 weeks down the bottom. The green ones are those rats fed the mangosteen, and the rind actually ground up the rind. And then the control rats fed the mangosteen. So firstly, by comparing the blue and the black, you can see that after the 8 weeks, the weight actually goes down, even in the normal animals. So the cardiovascular function was still fine, but the weight did go down. And you can see in the fat rats, the weight has gone up in the first 8 weeks, but in the second 8 weeks, no change in diet except for the addition of the mangosteen rind. The body weight first goes down a little bit and then gradually starts to increase. But there's a really tremendous difference after 16 weeks in the body weight of the fat rats and the fat rats that are no longer as fat fed the mangosteen. When we looked in B, this is histology of the abdominal fat pads. So the fat cells, and A is the control, B with mangosteen, the cells all the same size, magnification. The cells are relatively the same size. If you go to C, these are the fat rats. There's hypertrophy of these fat cells. You can see they're much greater in size. And D, after treatment, they've come back, not quite to normal, but they've certainly come back towards normal. And C above that is showing the range in size of the adipocytes, the red ones being the fat, so a few of the small ones and many more of the larger cells in those. The green one, as the fat ones treated, increased the amount of the smaller cells and decreased the very large cells. Now, if we look at the histology of the rats treated with those, so the first column are the control rats, the second column, the control rats with the treatment, the third one, the fat rats, so the high carbohydrate, high fat fed rats, and the D ones, those with the treatment. And so if we compare the third and the fourth column in particular, so in the first one you can see lots, this is liver, lots of white spots, so that's fat deposition. There shouldn't be fat deposition, that's not a normal occurrence in healthy animals or humans. In these rats there are. The treatment, it's virtually gone back. The second one is the collagen, so the red colour is the collagen stain. Lots more collagen in the fat rats, almost gone after treatment. And then if we look at the staining for the lipids in the liver, the red stain or red O stain, you can see lots of it in the fat rats and very little in the ones that, or much less in the ones that have been treated. Maybe not returning to normal, but it's gone an awful long way towards that. Now if we look at a very typical one, Garcinia indica. Indica obviously being the classical Greek and Latin apparently, of India. And a review of Garcinia indica, so the Indian Garcinia from a research group in Korea.
And the obvious question is there, why wasn't this sort of review done by Indian scientists in India, since it's a fruit from India, but containing compounds like garcinol, hydroxycitric acid, and the purple colour is cyanide glucoside, as in other fruit, plums, berries, whatever. So the comment on that is that these studies show that there are a whole range of effects that are cardioprotective from those compounds. So where are the products in India that use the Garcinia indica? I'll leave that up to you to answer. Now the possibilities, the sheer possibilities are amazing. Two pictures from reports: unexploited and underutilised wild edible fruits of the Western Ghats in southern India. And the reference there. And then also the wild edible fruit plains of eastern India. So they're through the whole country. There's this enormous range of possibilities, most of which, as they say there, are unexploited, many simply unknown, but unexploited and also underutilised. The question from a complete outsider like me is, why? I'd like to change a little bit now to another tropical fruit in a very wide definition of the word, and that is algae. So tropical seaweeds, the brown, the red, the green, tropical seaweeds that can be an absolute pest. The pictures down the bottom, the environmental impacts. So hundreds of kilometres of metre-thick seaweed washed up on the beaches in the Caribbean and South America, which after a couple of days had an absolutely revolting smell. Or in China, the coastline with the Ulva prolifera, so green algae, as green tides, completely covering all the beaches. Now, that's one view of them, but they can also be grown in culture, and in those in culture showing that they, so I got the slides in the wrong order, but grown in culture. Again, Sunil and one of our colleagues, Professor Nick Paul from the University of the Sunshine Coast, just north of Brisbane, showing they can grow. This is an ulva, a sea lettuce, grown there, and we did some of the testing on that. So is this realistic in India? Of course it's realistic. The coastal area of India is thousands of kilometres. It's in the right zone to grow both macro and microalgae, we'll come to soon. But those seaweed resources in India are very, very high, quite amazing, and it can be grown. There's lots of experience in doing that. So how many of you would have had seaweed in your diet recently? Probably none. Okay, now that picture came up. We did some work with a red seaweed, you can see there in the middle, Sarconema filiform, grown in North Queensland. It's an Australian seaweed, grows everywhere though, and added that again after the 8 weeks. And the seaweed has carrageenan in it, which is used to gel all sorts of different things, like ice cream, for example. So it can certainly be in the diet. But if again, you look at the green versus the red on the body weight picture at the top, showing that there is a very distinctive decrease in the rate of gain of body weight, no change in the control animals in this one. We look down the bottom, the changes between systolic blood pressure and fat mass. Again, the green versus the red. So the green one, the blood pressure has decreased dramatically over those 8 weeks compared with the red. Didn't quite get back to the same as the control, but pretty close. And the abdominal fat mass, again, markedly decreased, greater than half of the fat mass was lost in that 8 weeks. That's the main cause, or one of the major causes of the change in the body weight. And you can see it's getting back towards normal. So what I'd like to emphasise with these is that these are the types of responses that we would like to see in humans. So looking at a model, high carbohydrate, high fat induced obesity, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, exactly the same as occurs in humans, giving the same types of effects. Now the other interesting one are the microalgae. So these are single-celled algae, and they're the species that actually make the omega-3 fatty acids. So fish oil isn't made by fish. Fish oil is stored by fish, not made by fish. It's produced by the algae, so using sunlight and CO2, eaten by plankton, small fish, medium fish, and then eventually it gets up to the large fish. So there's two ways of producing omega-3 fatty acids. You can either do it in a tank with the microalgae, as shown here. It's one of our colleagues in Western Queensland. Or you can have these enormous trawling ships with kilometres long nets that take everything, whether it's useful or not, everything is taken from the sea. I know which one I prefer. We fed the fat rats with the Plantaropsis, and as the top third says, it increased the muscle mass and decreased fat mass. Okay, we know what those graphs will look like, but I'd like to look at the histology again there. So again, first column, normal, second column with the seaweed, with the microalgae, sorry. The third one, the fat rats, the D column with the fat rats with that, with feeding the microalgae in their diet for the last 8 weeks. So the control animals, in the liver at the top, lots of fatty deposition, very little in the after feeding, same diet. The second one, lots of lipids, so the all red O, the red dots, very few in the after feeding. In the heart, inflammatory cells, so K inflammatory cells in there, a bit hard to see. Virtually none in the fed ones, and then the collagen deposition, again using a stain, that light red stain for collagen. There's lots of collagen in the fat rats, in the heart, and there's hardly any in the treated. So again, unbiased evidence that we are getting changes not only in the parameters, but also in the histology of the key organs that are affected by the high carbohydrate, high fat diet. The last slide or two, can Indian cereals be a part of Indian meals? Well, I'm not the expert in this, but I can go to the internet as well and look up articles there, and there's one there, recipes from the Times of India. The advantage of the Times of India for me is that it's written in English, so I can actually understand it, even though it's there are many newspapers in local languages, including the major ones, Hindi obviously. Along its 8,000 kilometre coastline, India grows barely a fraction of the world's more than 30 million tonnes of seaweed. And your government is now investing a large amount of money to increase seaweed production. And that evolution is clearly to improve the diet in there's a whole range of possibilities. These are again photos taken from the internet. The Garcinia indica, so kokum, as a juice, I think is relatively freely available. Using seaweed or other healthy foods in different high fibre Indian meals to hopefully control diabetes. Also vegetarian meals, that's the one shown there with some of the seaweed. Lots of anthocyanin, flavonoid containing fruit and different fruit there. A number of those from India. And last but not least, we have shown very clearly that not only coffee is very useful, I haven't given the data, but not only the coffee is very good in these fat rats, but also the leftover from making the coffee. So the spent coffee grounds changes the microbiota in the gut of these animals and brings blood pressure back to normal, brings fat mass back to normal, All of these things that change in the high carbohydrate, high fat-fed diets can be reversed by a whole range of things that can be easily incorporated in the diet. So starting from a juice at the start of a meal, ending with a coffee, or even using the spam coffee that generates as a very cheap product, including in the diet. For example, in roti, in the different muffins in Western countries, but in a whole range of these possibilities to try and improve to decrease the risk to cardiovascular disease from the unhealthy diet that is now unfortunately quite common in India. Thank you very much for your attention.
In a very elaborated and excellent presentation, Lindsay, and also, this is I think in the direct question you are trying to help India to find out more food, because I heard that in coming years food can be a challenge for many countries, including here as well.
So food security is a major challenge, and this is one of the things that will come up with seaweeds. In that seaweeds will use something about 90% less water than most agricultural crops. They're grown on an area that is not being used for farming, and the production of protein, for example, from seaweeds is several times higher than of any of these two crops. So all of the things are positive.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you very much. There's enormous help in establishing also the fact about the quality and also finding the nutritive values and establishing the facts. And directly, rather I would say, helping the large country for the food security in future also.
Thank you. And also giving young people some concepts to challenge to show them what they actually can do, both in their own lives and for their communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Public at large, Are there some more comments, other questions from the audience?
Shall I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Good. Dr. Bran from Griffith University has reduced the grief of the people by giving vegetable diet. But one thing I tell you, even in India, we always say that it is the kitchen which takes care of your health. If your kitchen is fine, if you are not taking junk food, if you are taking the natural recipes, then you are much, much better off. And all these foods, they contain a good amount of fiber in addition to the carbohydrates and the fat. I tell you that khajur is one which has got a low glycemic index, and it helps in constipation, reduces the fat. It has got large number of the benefits. And we are working here on this thing, and we are also working on dates in relation to the diabetics with khajur. I hope that we will come out with something out of it. Then the second thing which I wanted to tell you, it is the processing of the food which is being done extensively now all over the world. Is not really very good for the health in comparison to the natural food. The nature is the best. If you are in the lap of the nature will take care of you and you will not have any disorders. And therefore it is very important that you should be near the nature. जो nature के करीब है, वही उसका सबसे बड़ा नसीब है. So it is very important to be near the nature, and I personally feel that it is the vegetarian diet which is of much more importance as compared to the non-vegetarian diet. I was just going in a floating garden in Hong Kong, and I was the only one who was a vegetarian, and I asked certain food, they gave, and then many of the restaurant people, they came and joined on my table. They said, no, I will also take vegetarian food. So I think if you are taking vegetarian food, not too much of the processed food, then there are chances that your life may be more smooth, you may be more happy, and the God will also take care of you. Thank you very much.
I think some more questions from the audience.
Any questions?
Some students asking questions.
Dr. Rahul from Bangalore would like to ask you.
Please.
Am I not wrong? I think it was a great presentation. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I myself, as Dr. Asif Saxena said, come from south of India, which is very close to Western Ghat. And I have not heard about this term seaweed that you mentioned just now. So I was wondering, do you know if there is any mass production that's going on this topic, and how easy or difficult it is to make it part of our breakfast tables every day? Thank you, Doctor. If in case you know.
Yes, I'm sure there's lots of okay, are you still there? Okay. There is lots of mass production. I don't know them all, but I know that Annamalai University has been involved for many years in setting up some seaweed growing facilities, and I'm sure they're not unique. I'm sure there's a whole range. I would check with the Government of India side.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we should gather the information and details, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think CDI must be having some, the Department of Ocean Development were trying to figure out some ocean needs, some trying to unearth. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure CDI must be doing something on it.
Yeah, but interestingly, Kapil, you saw, those other countries like Korea is publishing all the fruits and vegetables or green things which are available in India. So, Indian institutes which are, billions and billions of rupees they are spending, where are those fundamental science which are so relevant? So I think something need to be done there, right? Nutritive values and showing exactly the content, those molecules. There are papers coming from various, but not really directly linked to these, they are so important, food additives or even the direct food, right, which is so important. I'm sure they must be doing it, but I think it should become more relevant and applied to the day-to-day life.
I am totally amazed by the work done by Professor Brown, and the only thing, unfortunate part is that most of these clinical trials, when they come, because these are involving one of the healthy food, probably they need a finance not from pharmaceutical companies but finance from the government or from the universities. So they have not conducted a clinical trial on vegans, clinical trial on this. What they have shown, most of the guideline, take Mediterranean food, take this, take that, which is being done in the clinical trial. But there is a lot of evidence. In fact, one of the evidence is very famously, the video is available in YouTube for about Bill Clinton. His after bypass surgery, Bill Clinton still continued to have chest pain and the problem with his symptoms and problems. So one of the cardiologists in Cleveland Clinic, Ohio, has suggested to give him a special diet which is very rich in the fruits and made him vegan. He lost about 10 to 12 kg within a span of 3 months' time. All his symptoms improved. And now nearly more than 15 years he is still vegan. So these things in real practice do work. and they reverse the process of our atherosclerosis and metabolic syndrome. Hats off to Professor Ram.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Small studies, but they're only small of individual interventions, and it's really hard to get financing to do a 6 to 12 months study, and even that is trying to